Today, I want to talk about when healing begins and how long this process can be. Now, when I'm speaking of healing in this case, I'm talking about the healing that takes place that allows you to begin to come out of denial and to face the facts of your situation. All right, so for me, it took a very um, dramatic experience, traumatic experience. When my last child was born, I had a severe postpartum hemorrhage, and it was a home birth. We ended up needing to call 911, and I had to be transported via ambulance to the hospital. I received 3 blood transfusions, and before I was able to go home. So, very hard recovery while taking care of a baby. And there was a point during this situation where I felt like I had to choose to stay and care for my baby instead of just letting my life go. So, after that, after getting through the long recovery, regaining my strength, um, getting my life back in a sense, there would be times where it was a very dark time in my life. And I remember thinking, why am I still here? Why did I survive that experience to live like this? And so every time something would happen, or I would kind of assess my life, I would again go back to that question. Why did I survive for this? Like, why am I living for this? I feel like it was a great effort to keep me here. Um, like, let's shouldn't there be more? It wasn't even more about me making more of my life. It was like, um, why am I living so small? Like, why am I not embracing my life, like living my life, showing up in my life? So yeah, so facing that question often started it just started the very like slow, rusted, stuck wheel. It started some movement. It took a lot of work. This was 3.5 years before I left. That's how far back this wheel had to kind of get moving. Um, so the point is that leaving a situation isn't always a sudden act. Sometimes we hear the question, well, why didn't she just leave? Why did that person tolerate that so long? Why did they stay? All of those things. For me, it started with my childhood. You are raised a certain way. Survival feels safe and normal. A difficult situation can feel safe because you don't know anything else. The unknown feels unsafe. The unknown feels scary. You know how to survive what you're in. You don't know if you know how to survive what's on the other side. So that's part of this, why it, why it's a slow process, why it does take a lot of time. Um, so after that point, I ran across the book, The Artist's Way. So my background is I've always written. I write for myself. I write journals. I write stories. I just write since I was a child. I wrote poetry. I told stories to my brothers, like bedtime stories, things like that. So I write. And then I started, I guess, part of this recovery, part of the why am I still here? What is this life that I'm living was, let's really be more serious about the writing. And I ran across the book, The Artist's Way, and I started doing morning pages. So in the book, she talks about like if you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're a creative, basically, even a just person, you should just if you're a person, you can you can do these morning pages. It would be beneficial. And the idea is that in order to write or create, you need to get all of the noise and the stuff that's kind of blocking that creativity out. So you write 3 pages in a journal, or if you're an artist, I believe you can like draw or something. But basically, you're getting this stuff out on paper. So then your mind has the space to do the work of writing, like do the creative work, the imagining. Same with being an artist. I mean, I'm not an artist. I don't know what the process is, how it works, but I assume that you need to be able to be in touch with that imaginative part. And in order to do that, getting rid of the noise first can allow you to hear what's underneath. So that is kind of my quick take on the philosophy of the morning pages. So I began those morning pages. And they're not meant to be a journal, but I did write about what was going on, what was keeping me from the writing. And honestly, I thought it was just, up until this point, up until about a week ago, I thought it was just a waste of time because I just kind of wrote stuff down. Some days I have half a page left. I got to put some more words until I get to the last line so I can be done with my 3 pages. But a lot of times I started writing about what was bothering me, what was going on in my life, my thoughts and feelings, and I started to spend more time with them because before, I have written journals before, but usually I would write them. Sorry, bumped. Usually I would write them when I was upset. Um, and maybe I would just write out my angry thoughts and be done. But this time I was faced with 3 full pages of words I needed to put down. So that gave me more space to really dig into what was going on, what the noise was in my mind. And like I said, until a few weeks ago, I'll show you something here. I thought the artist's way didn't do anything for me. And then I went through some journals. My therapist asked if I had written about the relationship, and that might give insight into my growth and change. And so I went looking for my journals and I found this stack from 2016 on. There's a few more. I've been digging into them. And I realized the first few I opened, I'm like, oh, these are just morning pages. What am I going to find here? But I started skimming them. I've only looked through maybe half of the first notebook. And I realized there is a lot here. I didn't do the morning pages in the way of just getting rid of static. I actually started writing about patterns that I was seeing, arguments, what was going on in my mind. I started recording things and I started to break my denial. I started to break through whatever it was, the happy, shiny, happy people face that I put on in daily life, and I got under the surface. Because for me, yes, I thought about these things, but I never put them out on paper. I never confronted them outside of my mind. And when I began to do that, something must have changed because I could see now by looking back at those journals. This was right after my daughter was born, a few months later, and then before I left. So to me, that was pretty interesting to realize, wow, the morning pages changed my life. Not in the way I thought. I thought that I would write my morning pages and then I would finally write the great American novel I've always dreamed of writing, or whatever it is, the great fiction story I was going to write. That didn't happen. But honestly, how could I have written a substantial work in chaos when I lived in chaos? So those morning pages helped me really come to terms with what I was doing, helped me begin to answer that question, why am I still alive? What was I saved for? And that started, like I said, got that wheel turning, so that I could eventually leave, which was super interesting. Um, so I intend to continue to look through these journals and see what was happening in my life. I know that there were several relationship things that I was working through at the time. I also think these led to me choosing to finally find my father and meet him because I was writing these journals at that time as well, the morning pages, and there are journals in that stack. Um, So that leads to, what did this healing phase look like? If I, in like last week, a couple weeks ago, if I looked back at that time period, I wouldn't say that I was healing. But now I see that I was. I began healing and rebuilding. Like, the healing, part of healing is taking, it's like building a house. Okay, not building a house. It's like restoring an old house. You have to take out the rot. You have to take out the things that are broken, that aren't working well. You have to redo the wiring. There's a lot of things that go on. Sometimes the whole building, you can keep the design of it. You can reuse some materials. Maybe you keep the trim and things like that, recycle them. But sometimes you have to take parts of that house down to the foundation, or you even have to go down and dig around and um, strengthen the foundation. So I would say that's what this phase of healing was. The pre leaving phase was even looking, it was like the home inspection, going through there and seeing what needed to be fixed, finding the cracks in the foundation, and maybe not even getting to the point of making a plan for it, but at least acknowledging there was there were repairs to be made. There was destruction to deal with. So I would say that's what the morning pages did for me for those 3.5 years before I left. Um, so I'm going to try to connect this to where I am now in my life. I'm in my summer semester, my last summer semester at my community college. And at the end of it, I will have my associate's degree. Last week I registered for my fall semester at the university I'm going to start my bachelor's, or finish my bachelor's, I guess, 2 more years, and that will be done. So I have grown with looking at, if we go back to the old house analogy, finding the structures that needed to be fixed, rebuilt, whatever. I'm actively rebuilding this old house now. Sorry, just laughing because my age. This old house is getting rebuilt. And that includes stepping into what I want for a career in my future. Instead of just doing the thing that works well enough, being a dental assistant, I'm stepping into what I actually want, which is study psychology, therapist, writer, whatever. I'm taking a minor in writing and a minor in communication. The communication course, the communication minor is for you. So I'm taking audience centered communication, and it's an honors course. I'm eligible to take honors courses. Um, so I went from, as a teenager, I, I was a rebellious teen who was scraping by in high school because I didn't want to put in the effort because nobody seemed to give a crap. So I quit giving a crap. And my GPA, I should look it up. It was terrible. And now I'm eligible for honors courses in college. That's the difference between doing what everyone's telling you to do, forcing you to do, staying in the system, surviving, being unseen, and getting out, standing tall, being seen, going after your dreams, and choosing your future instead of people controlling you. That is a stark difference. I didn't even mean to bring that in, but it just came to me as I was talking. So that's what that looks like. And so I'm rebuilding my life. Still, I left in 2019. I'm still rebuilding my life. But honestly, I feel like I'm probably going to be rebuilding my life until my life is over. There's going to be some form of rebuild going on. I'm an old house. I take a lot of maintenance to stay strong and stable and livable, you know, to be able to care for others. As you know, I grew up in an old house. I always felt like my house was like the best part of my childhood. I feel affection for my house. I feel like my house cared for me. So that's how I feel about old houses. So when I'm using this idea of an old house, it's actually um, a good thing. It's not being weird. I don't know. So anyway, that's where we are. So like I said, we're always, I feel like as who I am, what I've been through, I'm always going to be rebuilding. And that's okay. That shows, I think if you can have, it's like a growth mindset. I think being comfortable with the idea that you may be rebuilding your life for much longer than you think is embracing the growth mindset, embracing creativity, embracing um, your dreams, your goals, and also being able to change, pivot, navigate a new way when you find that the old way doesn't fit who you are now. Because if you've survived something traumatic, part of that part of that rebuilding phase is even finding out who you are and what you want, what you like. I've read before that survivors of domestic violence sometimes don't even know what their favorite color is. They've been told everything they're supposed to think, breathe, do, believe, that they don't even know what their own favorite color is anymore. Because now they're wondering, is this the color I was told to like? What do I actually like? So that's part of the healing and the rebuilding is like being able to start on a path and go, oh, no, this isn't it. And I'm going to go another way. But you know what? You have the choice, you have the freedom, you have the peace to be in a place where you can even think about what it is that you actually want and what is best for you. So that's, that's the beauty of the rebuilding. So yeah, like, traumatic experience led me into this phase. And then the morning pages really helped me get my mind around things. And if this is something you want to try, I mean, you could literally write. I'm thinking about starting morning pages again because there's some projects I'm working on. It would be good to get that junk out in the morning so that I can focus on what I'm working on. But if you don't like to write, you could make a recording. You could make a video of yourself. I don't know. I feel like it's just getting these words out. And I know for me that sometimes I have to speak a word, speak my thoughts to actually hear them and process them, and then um, move forward from there. There's just something about that process for me. And I think it's true for many people. I think that's the importance of like going to a coach because you're speaking those words, people are reflecting something. Like sometimes you just have to talk with your friends, you need to talk out a problem and then the answer comes to you. It's this coming out of your mind, being out there, being seen and heard, that allow you to get to the next step. So I think that's what the morning pages did for me. And I think if we go back to the traumatic thing where I was like, why am I still alive? Why am I alive for this? Why did I survive to live like this? That really got my mind going on, okay, what does that mean for me? And I don't know. I didn't take action on it. I was just stuck in a why am I living for this and a 3 morning pages a day routine until my life just things caught up and it changed. And I didn't really do much. I think maybe I moved into acceptance that possibly what I was living was not good for me, not acceptable, not something that you survive to do. And I think just asking myself that question, even if I didn't have an answer for it, because I honestly didn't answer it, it was just kind of like, why am I still here to live like this? But that's all I said, I think. I think that was it. Why am I here? if this is my life? Why would God save me for this? And just the questioning did something. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. And if you have a comment or question, please go ahead and leave it below. We love to interact with you. And I hope wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're living a life of freedom and peace. Bye.